Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by MMA authority Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing?
Okay, just gone from boxing authority to MMA, huh?
You're taking over.
I for a second where you said MMA, I was thinking AAA. I have AAA, if my car breaks down, flat tire, any of that stuff. I got it, bang, right away. Listen, I don't know about MMA authority, but obviously fighting is fighting. I do know something about fighting, the mental side as well as the physical and technical side, but I am a big fan, growing all the time and respectful of the MMA fighters. It only grows. Obviously, I'm a boxing person all my life. That hasn't changed. But as I said, I'm proud, and I'm proud to get to know these MMA fighters, the UFC MMA fighters. But I'm also very appreciative that they've allowed me into their world, and the fans have allowed us into their world a little bit, and we've gone in there in a very humble, respectful way. I want to congratulate being on that subject, Dana White and the entire UFC organization, the machine, if you will, because it definitely is a machine, and the fans for just immediately filling that arena in the first show that they were allowed back in full force. Just an amazing, really an amazing show of force and of representation of loyalty to come back in the mass that they came back. Wow, it really was striking to see that. And before I let you take us, point to point, Ken, I think first off, I just have to say what a brilliant and at the same time gruesome night it really was, between the sudden and spectacular knockouts and finishes and unfortunately the horrible injuries. As I've said about both boxing and MMA in the past, these warriors, gladiators, whatever you're comfortable with calling them, they can never get paid too much as far as I'm concerned. And Saturday night once again highlighted exactly why I say that all the time. It was quite a night.
Yeah, and speaking of the fans, our friend Dustin Poirier was in town. I went to watch the fights with him downtown in Nashville at the Ainsworth, and I was quite shocked at, number one, the turnout that he got, but number two, how many of the fans came over and had nice things to say about you and I, the show, how much they loved it. And during the main event, there was one guy who went crazy when Usman won the fight, a Nigerian kid named Victor Sato. The only person cheering in the whole place. As soon as it happened, I said, I'm assuming you're Nigerian? And he's like, yes. I said, well, they're taking over, that's for sure. The Nigerians and the Cameroonians are taking over the whole sport. So shout out to Victor Sato, awesome guy. It was just a really fun night, and it was great to see all the fans turn out and support Dustin. Man, they love that guy. He's such a good person. But let's talk about the fights. To your point, what an awesome event. 3 first-round finishes, 2 in the second round. Everything ends with decisive victories one way or the other. So let's get right into it, starting with Anthony Smith and Jimmy Crute. Great first round. Jimmy Crute was doing some good work, but Anthony Smith landed those low kicks, and he hit him one right on the nerve and gave him that dead leg like we've seen a few times before. And the guy, poor Jimmy Crute from Australia, he just couldn't get his leg working. It wouldn't cooperate. You could see the foot flopping down. And to his credit, did you see after that happened, his leg was like just dead to the world, and he still scored an awesome takedown on Anthony Smith. And he said after the fight, look, I couldn't stand on my leg, so I was just going to pull guard, jump and pull him down on top of me and try to make it into a ground fight. So credit to him. That the toughness of these guys never ceases to amaze me, but credit to Anthony Smith for doing what he had to do, getting the win. How'd you like that one?
Yeah, it was impressive. Unfortunate at the same time. Obviously for Crute, a perfectly placed kick, if you will, behind the knee. that wound up doing what it wound up doing with the nerve damage from what I've heard and what we ascertained from that night from the information that was given as far as the injury. And we hope to God he's okay. And from the reports that I've been able to gather, he is, and he is going to be okay. He being Crute. Most of these Australians, I notice, are physically strong and tough son of a gun. I was going to say tough buggers. That's my little bit of crossing over to Australian. Tough buggers, tough buggers. But there's a lot of tough buggers in this business. And we've been seeing them and appreciating them. First of all, I have to start with the jab. Smith's jab was brilliant, accurate, and well timed. Timing is so important to being effective, in anything in life. But in the business we're talking about, it breaks the opponent's rhythm. It did do that. It was terrific. It shouldn't be missed to point out, so I'm not missing it. I am pointing it out. And talk about, as I just said, a well-placed jab, which Smith had, but also that well-placed kick behind the knee of Crute, taking him out of the fight, basically. That was because of the calmness and the game plan, the thinking, the IQ. I talk about that all the time. We all talk about these guys being tough. Let's remember that. Let's give them credit for their IQ. That at the end of the day, I think part of the reason Smith won was because of his experience level advantage. That he's so experienced, he used that. He used that experience to be calm, to think, to have a tremendous game plan, fight plan, whichever way you want to call it, and execute it. So experience was at play, no doubt about it. It wasn't about luck or he caught him in that special spot. No, it was about the way that he was prepared and the way that he was able to think calmly in a place that not everybody could think calmly. And again, you touched on it. Boy, oh boy, showing that gladiator mentality. That's a trademark of these MMA fighters. I mean, here's Crute, as he was, he's ready to continue. As you said, he attacked Smith, brought him to the ground, tried to, in his mind, stay off his legs and keep it on the floor. And then, of course, once they had to get up to their feet again, it was obvious that, it was obvious he had one wheel, right? It was obvious that this was a one-wheeled guy, a one-legged guy. And yet he was trying to continue with the one leg. I mean, you talk about the epitome of a warrior. I mean, you don't need to go to Webster's. Just watch that. You don't have to go to Webster's dictionary to figure that stuff out. The best defining of anything in this life is example. It's not anything else, We go to the dictionary to get the words, but we go to people to get the true definition of what's behind those words. And we got the true definition of what's behind the words of toughness and just a desire to find a way. Toughness, resiliency, character, just a code of conduct, a code of behavior. We have to go to people to get that. We really do, to see it, to feel it, to recognize it, to witness it. And we witnessed it. We witnessed it with a true warrior. As long as their heart beats, they're going to continue to try and complete the mission. Whatever their mission is, to conquer at all costs. I mean, that's these guys' mission. Find a way to conquer at all costs. And I always try to put in a kind of parallel, a movie. And the first thing that came to my mind there, Ken, was the Terminator, the original Terminator, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that first one, where at the end of it, they finally get the son of a gun, and they put a pipe bomb in him, and they blow up the bottom part of his body, and he's got no legs, and there he is crawling. He's still trying to get to John Connor, to complete his mission. That's what Crute was. That was Crute. He was still crawling, trying to get to Jimmy Smith to complete his mission. Wow.
Anthony Smith, yeah.
I'm sorry. Anthony Smith. I mean, really, that's what I saw. It was remarkable. Really was. It's Marines. I have all the respect, so much respect for our armed services. Without them, we can't do this. There's not much we could do in this country without them. And so for me, these UFC fighters, these MMA, they're Marines in a cage. Yeah, that's what they are.
Oh, yeah.
And they proved it once again. They showed it once again. And again, credit to Smith with that great fight plan. Using the jab, the timing, the well-placed kick, the great ring IQ that I want to give him credit for. Thinking at all times, using his experience. And as usual, I'm going to sum it up. Both these fighters showed great class. And that's not missed by me. It's not missed by you. It's not missed by, I don't think, anybody out there that cares about such things. That besides everything else that they bring to the ring, that they bring to the cage, they bring great conduct, in the way that they behave as men, as women, as people, with the class that they show, with the respect they show each other, with how humble they are at times when when not everybody would be, and with just how again how respectful they are. It's not missed by me, and I'm making sure that I mention it because of that.
Well, speaking of classy guys, next up on the UFC card, two super classy New York tough guys, Uriah Hall and Chris Weidman. I don't know how anyone could not be a fan of either of these guys. Both have been through wars in the UFC and other organizations. Chris Weidman, one of my favorites from Strong Island. And Uriah Hall becomes the first UFC fighter to win a fight without throwing a single punch. Unfortunately, Chris Weidman threw a leg kick. Uriah Hall checked it, and we saw the results if you watched. One of the most gruesome leg injuries you'll ever see. You mentioned that it brought back images of Joe Theismann, but what it reminded me of, obviously, was Anderson Silva. And Anderson Silva, coincidentally, broke his leg in the same exact way in a fight against Chris Weidman. Same exact thing. And it's hard for you to not feel heartbroken for Chris Weidman. He relocated his whole family down to South Carolina from Long Island, joined a new camp, was highly motivated. In all the interviews, he sounded great. I really thought it was going to be a good battle. He had knocked out Uriah Hall in the past. Uriah Hall's been on fire. Weidman's had a couple losses recently, so I thought that this was going to be an awesome matchup, and it's just unfortunate to see it end like that. Really sad for Chris Weidman. Such a nice guy. Anyway, what were your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, very true. Talking about winning a round without throwing a punch, Willie Pep, the great Will of the Wisp, great featherweight champion, one of the greatest fighters of all time, had 300 fights. Obviously no kicking anything in boxing, but the legend has it that he once won a round without throwing a punch. That's how great he was defensively and with ring generalship, controlling the ring, controlling his opponent, never throwing a punch, just feints, leg movements, angles, head movement, making the guy miss. He actually wound up getting the round without ever moving those hands. The word that I have to use when I saw the injury is disturbing. It was disturbing to see something. And like I said, my mind went all the way back to Joe Theismann, the quarterback of the Washington Redskins, when I think it was Lawrence Taylor, the great linebacker, tackled him, and Theismann's leg and foot stayed in the ground. His cleats were stuck in the ground, and meanwhile his leg was bent back. And boy, it was pretty horrific. And this was horrific to see it. It was, as I said at the beginning of the show, gruesome. But again, speaks to why they never can get paid too much, in my estimation, these fighters. And the same thing for the boxers that always risk injury the way they do. They can never get paid too much. But getting to the fight, again, a reminder that these are real-life gladiators, risking their well-being, their lives when they step into that cage. And as, I always say in boxing, Ken, it's a reminder that when they go in the cage, they go in the octagon, they go into the ring, they're coming out of it with less of themselves. They are. I mean, I'm not just talking about this one where it's more obvious that he's coming out of it impaired, but every time you take blows, every time you put yourself in that position, a little of yourself gets left there, gets left behind. You're a little bit less. And again, why I have not only the admiration and respect for fighters, but why I've fought so long and tried to so hard on ESPN when I had my position at ringside for all those years, to fight for these fighters, to fight for National Commission, to fight and go crazy when they got robbed of a decision, of an opportunity to get out of the business, to get a step closer to the door, to gain enough money and enough accolades, enough legacy, enough of the things that we chase and that they chase, to answer questions about yourself, to make a statement about yourself, to make a journey for yourself to dark places, to know that you went to places that some people wouldn't go to, and that you're better for going to those places, for putting on a light. And you've taught us by going to those places that you can get to a farther place if you're willing to go and if you believe in your journey. So that is why I always would go and people would say, wow, Teddy, you went ballistic the other night. Yeah, when a guy got robbed, I'd go ballistic in boxing because they were a step closer to that big fight, and now they got to go into the back of the line and face all those punches all over again to get back to that place. And it would infuriate me because I understood what was at risk. I understood every moment what these guys were facing and that they might never get back there. So, again, just a reminder, as I said, why they're never going to get paid too much as far as I'm concerned. And again, what great character and humanity Hall showed afterwards. You mentioned the tweets, Ken. I tweeted, I believe after that one, I tweeted something like, what an honest and decent man Hall is after his interview. And that's how you spell champion. Just look at that. Look at the way Hall behaved. Look at the way Weidman behaved. He gets carried out on, you talk about getting carried out on your shield, my God. He gets, oh, God. Look at the way these guys have behaved in the past. Look at the way that they behave under these conditions. Again, the real definition of a champion in the way that Hall conducted himself in the way that he did. It really, you needed a moment after that to kind of to go forward, and then deal with the rest of the night to move on and erase that from your memory banks. Seeing that, obviously seeing that leg do what it did after it crashed into the leg of the shin bone of Hall.
Yeah, it was crazy. So hopefully get well soon to Chris Weidman. Next up in the women's flyweight title fight, Valentina Shevchenko in a one-sided beatdown of Jessica Andrade, former champion. Wow, this was just, she ragdolled her for the first round, finally got her in a mounted crucifix and just rained down punches and elbows on her until the ref had seen enough. It really just looked like totally one-sided. Congratulations to Jessica Andrade. To Valentina Shevchenko. That was her 5th title defense, 7th straight win. Looks to be unstoppable. I can't even imagine who's next for her. She seems to have cleaned out the whole division. How'd you like that fight?
Wow, tremendous. First of all, how big and strong is Shevchenko? I mean, really, really so strong, so big and strong. It jumped out on the screen there at you. And I want to say this, because I always want to give the proper breakdown of these fights where the fighters deserve and the fans deserve to my best ability anyway, which is, which is not always as good as I want it to be, but it's the best I can bring. And I want to just mention that when you really put into context what Shevchenko did and who she beat in Andrade, she beat a really good fighter. People were looking forward to this fight like it was really going to be, it was going to be a little bit of a test for Shevchenko, which of course it didn't turn out to be. But when you can go and beat somebody that's that good in that manner, you have really shown a separation, a different plane, a different level from everybody else. And that's what she showed, because that's what the great Marvin Hagler used to do with really good fighters. With good fighters. Really good fighters. I mean, he did it with a great fighter, with Tommy Hearns, but with really good fighters, he would take them apart and make it look easy. And the really special ones that are in their own different sort of zip code, if you will, they have the ability to do that, to make something look easy that is really hard. And that's the first thing that I said to myself, I have to get that across when I talk with Ken on our podcast, that she did something. She wasn't in there with a ham and egger. I mean, like the old timers would say, she's in there with a top athlete, a top competitor, a former champion. And she's able to really demolish her the way that she did. Again, she did something difficult in a very easy fashion. And only the real special ones can do that. So kudos to her. And I needed to recognize that, as I said. And Hagler also was a southpaw. And that's what he did. That's what Hagler did throughout his career. He did that with, oh my goodness. He did it with a Mugabe, John Mugabe, who was 24-0. I think it was 24-0, if my memory serves me correct, with 24 knockouts. Nobody wanted to fight Mugabe. I mean, he could knock down houses. Who the hell wants to fight a guy that can knock houses down? I mean, really, And he goes, and what's he do? He fights him and he takes him apart. Just incredible. I tweeted that. I just wanted to make sure that I said it in what I thought would be hopefully the proper volume to get across. Again, where a lot of people might dismiss it as having a layup. She didn't have a layup. It wasn't supposed to be a layup. She made it into a slam dunk. And
no, for context, Jessica Andrade beat Rose Namajunas, picked her up and slammed her on her head and knocked her out. And Rose, as we're going to talk about, beat Weili Zhang, who's was coming in on a 21-win fight streak since 2014. I mean, I didn't think anyone was going to beat Weili Zhang. So, and Andrade, to your point, is no slouch. She's been the champ. She's beat superstars. And, we had one in the following match against Weili Zhang. You got anything else on Andrade before we discuss the Rose?
Yeah, no, the only thing I want to finish with Shevchenko with the Andrade fight is that she showcased how well-rounded her skills and talents are. That I want to make sure that I put that out there. Striking on the outside as a southpaw, and then she's grappling on the inside on the mat. Of course, very impressive. She made something that could have been hard very, very look too easy. She made it kind of like, I want to say, hey, for you people at home, don't try this at home. It's not as easy as she just made. It's not as easy as she just made it look, you know. But really, so strong, so big, and again, just so diversified in her skills. Very impressive. Somebody that I'll be looking to continue to follow.
Yeah, so next up in the co-main, like I said, we had Weili Zhang defending her title against Rose Namajunas. It's hard not to love Rose. Thug Rose. Just tough as nails, super kind person, soft-spoken. But when she gets in the ring, my God, it's like she becomes a different person. Like I said, Weili Zhang riding a 21-win streak, hasn't lost since 2014. And Rose kicks her in the head, knocks her out. Only the 8th time that someone's been knocked out by a head kick in the history of the UFC, to just highlight how impressive that kick was. It was almost like a little question mark kick at the end. It looked like it was coming a little lower and then just looped over her hand and caught her right on the jaw. And my God, what a shocking knockout. I wanted Rose to win. I expected Weili Zhang to beat her up. And Rose proved me wrong. Oh, my God, she looked awesome. What'd you see in that one?
I've seen great left hooks to the jaw that have taken people out or dropped people. Like, obviously, the one that comes to mind is Joe Frazier's great left hook in the 15th round that dropped Ali in their first fight. But I've never seen a great left foot to the jaw, like that. And that was a great left foot to the jaw. I tweeted that I was looking forward to this fight before the fight, like Hagler Hearns, and I tell you, it ended up in some ways it ended up like that, suddenly and in a dominant fashion. It really was. What I was impressed with was not just the fact, everyone jumps to the left foot landed on the side of the jaw of Weili and doing the damage it did. But how she set it up, she boxed. She beautifully, again, IQ. She, Namajunas, am I pronouncing that right? Namajunas?
Namajunas.
Yeah, Namajunas. She set it up so magnificently that shouldn't be missed. I know that we're going to all focus on the foot, and of course you would, because it was so sensational, dynamic, and dramatic. But she set it up by boxing and using her legs and her striking skills and just getting Weili into the kind of lack of focus for something like that she needed to get her into. She took her away from that thinking. She took her into a place where she was thinking about where the strikes would come from different angles, because that's what she was suggesting in her movement, in her boxing. She was moving, boxing, keeping Weili, off balance. And so Weili's thinking, okay, I got to be really alert, in this dimension. Never thinking about the dimension that Namajunas was thinking and had planned for her all along. That's brilliant. Brilliant. Please, everybody, appreciate how brilliant, I'm sure you do, but how brilliant that was to box for the first couple minutes, reminiscent to me in some ways of Masvidal, what he did against Ben Askren, when it was much shorter. It happened right at the very beginning, but he had a plan too to set up Askren, and it was executed. He moved off to the side a little bit. First of all, he was laying against the fence in a nonchalant way. Then when the bell rings, he moves off to the side, and then what? He makes the attack, and he throws the knee, knowing that Askren was going to be going for the shoot, and he knocks him out with the knee. He set it up, but he set it up with that subtle movement off to the side with his legs, where he took Askren away from the thinking that he should have been thinking. He disarmed him. He disarmed him mentally, and that's what Namajunas Jonas did.
Rose.
Yeah, that's what Rose. Thank you. That's a little easier. That reminds me of the great Marv Albert. I did my first Olympics in Australia, and it was 2000. I want to remember the year. I believe it was.
2000 was Australia. Audley Harrison brings home gold for Great Britain.
That's right. I'm so glad you know how to use a computer. You're the best.
Audley Harrison is my friend.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, you got a lot of friends. I never know who you're going to pull out.
Of course.
Who you're going to pull out at what time? I got to be alert too, because it could come from any angle. Bang! I get caught. I could get caught by Robert Redford.
You just said you were just highlighting keeping them off balance.
Beautiful. And so I'm doing that Olympics, the first one, and I'm with the great I'm thinking of Marvin Hagler. They're both great, but the great Marv Albert, and we're doing all these names that I've already proven I'm no Orson Welles. I think I've proven that already. But you need phonetic spelling for them. They're difficult. They're from all different places in the world. And oh my God, I can't even read them, much less pronounce them, right? So it's a little scary, and I'm trying to pronounce this guy. One guy, I forget where he was from, but one of the former Iron Curtain countries, and
Azerbaijan.
Yeah, one of those type places where the names were pretty difficult. And so anyway, I'm wrestling with it a little bit. And finally, I say, well, the Bulgarian in the blue trunks is doing a tremendous job of controlling geography. And Marv Albert wasn't quite as, he's the greatest, but he wasn't quite as forgiving and gentle as you were in lending a hand. He turns to me and says, Teddy, you cannot do that. You cannot replace Blue Trunks for his name. We have to be better than that. And so, at least we have to give his first name. I said, there it is. And then I looked at it and I said, but Marv, his first name is just as difficult as his last name. I mean, I'm going back to the Blue Trunks. I'm going back to the Blue Trunks, but. Yeah, Rose.
How about we just call her Thug Rose?
Well, Rose, I'll tell you, Rose, as I said, she set that up so well, so beautifully. Boxing, moving, getting Weili in a sort of comfort zone that you should never be in, getting her out of the mode she needed to be in, and then suddenly coming with a kick when she's got it thinking about boxing. So it was well thought out, great IQ, and on top of that, to make it even more impressive to me, was she does it with her lead foot, Ken, like the jab hand, the lead hand. She does it with the lead, and there's no mistake to me about why she did that. It's not an accident, because you can't pick up the front foot coming quick enough, because it's going to come from a closer distance and from an angle where you're not going to pick it up. You're not going to see it. If you do it with the back foot, which is probably her more powerful leg, to be quite honest, if she did it with the back foot, the right foot, you would have been able to pick it up because there's more distance to cover, and you would have saw it coming. And it might not have gotten through. It might have been blocked, or it wouldn't have had the same impact because she would have been prepared for it. So that was part of the brilliance too, was that she did it with the lead foot, which would be harder to recognize it coming, harder to see it coming. So well calculated, well planned. Kudos to her and her team, all of her trainers, Trevor Whitman, all of them, every one of them. The striking coach, the kicking coach, everybody, because I know they have different coaches.
Her partner is Pat Barry, former UFC fighter, and he's one of her trainers as well.
So all of them did their job. You couldn't do it better. Like I said, 1 minute she's boxing, and the next minute, out of the sky, bang, comes a lead foot that you have no way of seeing it coming. And the impact was so devastating that Weili, in the interview afterwards, and, was arguing that the stoppage was too quick. She was out. I mean, that old saying, the film doesn't lie. The video doesn't lie. We see her that she's on the ground. She's out for that moment. She's out. And so the fight, of course, had to be stopped. But then afterwards, her pride and, again, the warrior mentality, which is incredible. She's saying it shouldn't have been stopped. She doesn't realize, it became evident in the interview that she didn't realize that she was out. And you're on co-pilot. Ken, these fighters in my business, obviously in the UFC too, they program their minds. We program the minds so strongly that no matter what happens, you're ready to keep going. So even when you have a short circuit, and get knocked out is sort of a short circuit where suddenly the electricity gets disconnected from your brain and the body short circuits. I think that's a real kind of simple way of explaining, but it gets the point across. And so you have to short circuit, and right after the short circuit, the lights go on again. And so you forget the lights were out sometimes, like for a split second. Were the lights out? Did we have a blackout there? Or did the lights really go out for a moment there? You're not sure. And that's kind of what happens with a person who is so strong mentally, so set, so resigned to go no matter what, like the Terminator, to just keep going, that they have difficulty understanding that lapse, that disconnect, that, no, I wasn't out, and they will argue with you. I wasn't out. Well, I don't want to be, rude and at the time with such a sensitive moment, but it's like, well, look at the video and you'll see that you are out. And of course nobody wants to do that, but that shows you the just the mindset of these warriors, that they don't know about that gap. And it reminded me, there was another one, because it was way back on HBO years ago, where Marlon Starling, who was a welterweight champion of the world, he was defending his title. I believe, if my memory is correct, it was against Molina, and it was on HBO, as I said. And the great Larry Merchant was great. The great Larry Merchant was doing the interview after Starling had been caught with this punch that he never saw, and he got knocked out, if my memory is right. And they're talking about it, and then all of a sudden Merchant realizes that Starling doesn't realize that he was down. He doesn't realize that he was out. And so it really was an incredible interview, if you look at that, because Merchant had to say to him, well, you were down. And Starling looked at him and said, I was never down. Well, you were down. But no, I wasn't down. And this, again, the same phenomena, if you will, was taking place, that these great warriors, Starling in this case, was so determined. His mind was so, pre-programmed, preordained in his mind that nothing's going to stop me, that I'm going to get my mission accomplished. And that moment where he's disconnected, where he's short-circuited from his body, that he can't recognize that he's still ready to go in his mind. And that's kind of what was taking place with Weili at that moment. And I've seen it before, and I just thought that it was worth taking a shot at explaining it to the audience out there, of what is, there is something really that is physically going on at that moment that kind of can give you an answer to why they're behaving that way, why they're so sure that they could go on, that they weren't hurt. There's an explanation for it, and that's the explanation.
Hey guys, want to take a quick break to give a shout out to our newest sponsor, Brave, the privacy browser. Do you really want big tech and other tracking systems looking at what you're browsing on the internet, keeping tabs on you? Other browsers don't respect your privacy. Brave is different. They've built better privacy into a much faster browser. It's 3 times faster than Chrome with a much better layout and user experience. Brave automatically blocks big text trackers and intrusive ads that slow you down, drain your battery, and track you from site to site and hit you with those creepy ads that follow you around the web. I'm sure everyone has stories of times they were talking to someone about something. The next thing you know, you're getting ads pop up about conversations you've had. The conspiracy theories are abound. With Brave, no one, including Brave, sees what you're doing online. So head over to brave.com/Atlas to join 30 million people who've upgraded to the privacy browser for free. Yes, for free. No purchase price whatsoever. Again, you can download and use it for free. Switch in under 60 seconds by going to brave.com/Atlas.
Now, one other thing, Ken, I just want to say again, and I think it's worth saying it, class shown not just by the fighters, but by Rogan and the commentators, handling those situations. Again, all night long, class shown by not only talent shown in the ring all night, great talent and great IQs and great preparation by the coaches, by the fighters, all of them. Just like you see with boxers when it's right, but just a great job afterwards in the comments, in the way that they behaved, in the way they conducted themselves, in defeat, in victory, and even the commentators. I just wanted to make sure I said that.
Yeah, that commentating team of John Anik, Joe Rogan, and Daniel Cormier are second to none. I really enjoy them. They seem like they all genuinely get along. It's just they have a great flow together. I really like Anik as the host. But what I was going to say is, speaking of not knowing if you're out, one guy who did know he was out was Jorge Masvidal. Unfortunately, we were pulling for George. I wanted to see him win, but let's give it credit to Usman. He just continues to get better and stepped in and set George up perfectly. First person to knock George out, I think, since 2008. First person to stop him like that with a knockout. And just hit him with the perfect shot right on the jaw, knocked him out cold. And Jorge, as you would expect, total gentleman after the fact, said, look, the guy's clearly got my number. He's there's nothing I can do with him. He got me. He's a better man. Still got work to do, but George is a class act and just a really nice guy. He really is a good person. And credit to Usman, like we said, the three-headed monster from Africa, the 2 Nigerians with Israel, Usman, and Francis Ngannou. The train keeps rolling. Those guys all look awesome. Really nice people. By the way, speaking of Rose and Trevor Whitman, it would be great to get them on the show at some point if they're interested. We'd love to talk to them. But credit to Kamaru Usman, another victory. Looks like he's going to get Colby Covington next. But what'd you think of the fight? What went right? What went wrong for George? Dying to hear your thoughts on this one.
All right, that starts with full disclosure, as always. When we're right, we say it. We're not, obviously, we're not hesitant to say it. And I don't think we overdo it, though. I think we do it with some kind of grace and manners. But also, when we're wrong, we say it. And I said that I thought Masvidal had a chance, and he didn't, as it turned out. So I was wrong. And funny thing, I thought that if Masvidal could avoid the takedowns and stay on his feet, because Usman is so strong and such a great, grappler, wrestler, everything that is part of being so great down on the mat, I thought he'd have a chance. And I didn't realize how much Usman's striking, and part of that goes to Trevor Whitman too, speaking of him.
Yep.
But I didn't realize how much Usman's striking had improved. And more important than me not knowing, and here's the key for me breaking this fight down, very important, either did Masvidal. And he stated such. No excuse. He wasn't making an excuse. I'm not making an excuse. It's a fact that went into that went into the performance here, and how Usman was so dominant that Masvidal wasn't expecting him to be that good. I know you're supposed to, I get it, but I'm just making a fact here. Again, no excuse. Usman did what he did, and he was great. But Masvidal, as Teddy Atlas, I didn't think that Usman had improved that much on the striking end of it. And more importantly, like I said, Masvidal didn't either. And he said it. He said it in the interview afterwards. And here's the funny thing. The first fight that he took on 6 days' notice, Masvidal with him, it hurt him. I'll tell you how it hurt him. I thought it could help him. That he'd say, hey, if I could do that well and survive. I know he got dominated, but he survived with no preparation. Hey, I got a chance to win this damn thing. But here's the kicker. In that fight, it was all about strength, physicality, getting in close, getting pinned against the fence, getting taken down, trying to get back to your feet, avoiding takedowns. It was all about the inside game, the mat game. And in the mind of Masvidal, that did not help him. That set him up. We talk about setting guys up, like how beautifully Rose set up Weili by boxing, moving, and then bang, a kick, set her up. Well, that first fight set up, it did. It set up Masvidal in a way that his mind was, he said it. He said, in camp, I did more training on the floor and wrestling and grappling than I ever did before. Like he almost took the striking for granted. I don't got to worry about the striking. Well, you're damn wrong. You have to worry about that. But again, he was, because of the first experience being all about physicality and about getting taken to the mat and avoiding being taken to the mat, he concentrated on that fight. And he kind of took for granted, I'm better than him striking. I already got that in the bag. Not that he didn't practice that.
Reminded me a little bit of Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. It didn't look like Conor was expecting Dustin to come out and start cracking him with leg kicks and headshots.
Good point. And Ken, again, Masvidal said it. This isn't just Teddy Atlas saying it with my instincts and my judgment and fighting and my experience. No. Or my eye that I noticed that. No. This is Masvidal telling you. But I understand it. Because I was thinking too that Masvidal had a chance in the striking here. But as it turned out, he couldn't dominate in the striking because this other guy his game was now at a level where he wouldn't allow that to be done. And because he had improved in that area so much. And again, where he's thinking about the physical part of it, about the takedown part of it, about the mat part of it, about the grappling and wrestling part of it, that he never, this caught him by surprise. And again, no excuse. Because, you're a fighter, you're in there, and, you got to take care of what has to be taken care of. That's your responsibility. And obviously, Usman was prepared to do what he did. But it really, I think it played into a big part of what happened that night. That Masvidal, he would have been better off if he never fought this guy. Because, in some ways, because he got it in his mind that all he had to worry about was wrestling. And it was far from the truth. And I want to also mention that it reminded me in the way that Usman has improved his striking game. First of all, he's so strong. He's so prepared. He's so good on the mat. That now with an improved striking game, he's going to be an awful difficult guy to match up with. Because when you match up with someone, you're always looking for some kind of weakness. Something where you could take, you could take homage and saying, you could take you take confidence in saying, okay, look, I can't beat him on the floor, on a mat. I get it. I know that. So I'll avoid that, but I could beat him over here. I could do this. I could do that. But with the way he's improved striking now, he's kind of taken those he's taken those outlets away from you, from your thinking that those could be places where you could take them that, you can have an advantage. And it reminds me a little bit of the great Khabib before he retired, where we already knew what a monster and what a master he was on the mat. But he was improving almost subtly in his striking game that I don't think he got enough credit for. But in his last fight, Ken, I remember where I was thinking, well, he's fighting a guy who's a good wrestler and a superior striker, and maybe it could be interesting. And then as the fight progressed, I said, wait a minute. Khabib, the guy who's the monster in wrestling, on the floor and grappling, all that stuff, he's out jabbing this guy. All of a sudden, I saw a jab that I hadn't really seen, a consistent, accurate, well-timed, well-thrown jab by Khabib. And I said, wow, he's added that to already his brilliant game, where now, even if he's not better than a striker, maybe a great striker, he's good enough to nullify the striker's game, where the striker can't get his way, where he can stabilize his striker with a good jab. He can control certain parts of the geography, as I talk about, that he needs to control with the striking game. He can offset the striking game by using a well-placed jab and being balanced and being in position where he throws his punches. He's not giving up defense, and he's in position to also eat with the right hand after the jab because his striking has improved. So as I thought about Usman, I thought about Khabib. I said, yeah, he's done the same thing Khabib did at the late part of his, before he retired, where he's improved in those areas. And it's going to be very, very hard now to deal with him. And the execution of that knockout punch, Ken, when you get a knockout that clean, it's almost always because you land a blind punch. And almost always because you had a trick, something with it to allow it to be blind. It wasn't just a naked punch. It wasn't just a forceful punch, a powerful punch. We know he's got power. But it was more than that. It was the execution. It was the delivery system, as I talk about, the trickery, the IQ, where Usman threw purposely a little wider jab just to bring the eyes of Masvidal over to his right side, just to distract him a little bit, to move his eyes a little bit. He threw the left hand in that lane, not straight, not in the middle of the highway, but more on the shoulder of the road. He threw it on the side a little, and then the right hand comes down the middle, down the pike, down the highway, and he never sees it, and it knocks him cold. Brilliantly done, and I won't even let go of it there, where when he threw that left hand on the side, at the same time, simultaneously, he being Usman, grabbed the right hand of Masvidal and pulled it down. That distracted him more. That caused a reaction. It was the catalyst for a reaction that caused his eyes to blink. Yeah, I know I'm going deep, but look at the video. You're going to see it. Believe me, there was a lot that went into it, more than just the final blow, where he could land a clean, blind punch, a punch that he wasn't going to recover from, no matter how good his chin was, where it caused Masvidal's eyes to blink, to almost close by doing that, and then never able to see, as I said, the right hand. And also, Usman showed that his physical strength, that great physical strength that he has, that we see on the mat, in the grappling, in the wrestling, it translated into punching power. That he was able to take that same power. It's not always the case. he was able to take that same power that he showed physically on the mat and translate it into a punch where the guy's a hell of a puncher. He's a great puncher. So all of that was taking place, and he needs to get credit for all of that. What a job. What a job it was done there. And I just want to see in my notes if I'm leaving anything out. One thing that I was, the only thing I was right about, I make sure that at the beginning I was quick to say where I was wrong, thinking that Masvidal had a chance and he didn't under the circumstances. But the one thing that I was right about, I said and I tweeted it before the fight, look for Usman's strong, accurate jab to set the table as he'll then go to eat with the right hand. That I was right about, because I knew that Usman in his prior fight had been working on the striking game. I didn't know how much it had come in terms of improvement, that it came to this so far forward to this place, but I knew it had been improving because I had seen it in his prior fight, the jab, a good jab. And so I knew that would be part of the thinking of Weidman and Usman in setting up the fight plan, that Masvidal is going to look to strike, he's going to look to box on the outside, and what's the best way to stabilize a guy who's looking to box? Use your jab. Use your jab the right way, where you can get him out of his rhythm. You can discombobulate the guy, where you can stabilize him, control him a little bit, break him up a little bit, where he can't get into his boxing rhythm. And so I figured that would be part of the scheme, part of the thinking for the team of Usman, and it turned out it was. And boy, talk about using your left hand, as I always say, Ken. Set the table with the left so you could eat with the right. He didn't show good table manners. He devoured him. I mean, it was, you know what I mean? You talk about, I know my mother used to say, small bites, please. Small bites, but he took a big bite there. And it was kind of like a lion attacking a gazelle. I mean, it was powerful and sudden. And like I said, Ken, smartly, brilliantly, that KO punch was set up, as I described.
You know what I thought when I saw that is I think Usman's been watching those dynamic striking videos.
I appreciate you.
He learned a few tricks.
I appreciate you mentioning that.
And if you want to learn how to throw a bunch of different jabs, there's about, I think, 14 different jabs you can learn on dynamic striking. Check it out, dynamicstriking.com. Look up Teddy's got a whole instructional series up there if you're interested in learning the fundamentals and basics of boxing. But Teddy, speaking of boxing...
Well, let me say one thing towards that. I appreciate that. Thank you. For Usman and for Weidman, I'm going to give them credit in a different sport, in a different vocation, in a different mastery, if you will. I'm going to say that they set it up like a master chess player.
Oh, yeah.
It was a master chess
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, it really was. It was like Bobby Fischer, the great chess master from years ago. It was like that. They really, that was a brilliant, it was painful chess, don't get me wrong, painful chess, but still, brilliant chess move.
Yeah, congratulations to Trevor Weidman. 2 big wins in the co-main and the main. But let's jump into some boxing, and before we...
Oh, one other thing, I'm sorry. I have to give him, again, I want to give credit, as I've been doing all through this whole podcast, I want to give credit to these guys, Masvidal and Usman, how classy they are in victory and defeat. And it was shown by the competitors, as I said, again, all night long. And you know what? Usman's the kind of guy, he's so proud. He really is. He's proud. They all are. But he's a proud guy in a way that not only how he fights, how he conducts himself, how he carries himself. And it shows. And he's remember that old saying, Ken? This is a guy that epitomizes that old saying where they used to say, and we used to say, look, we're bringing our own, we're doing our talking with our fists. We're not, where the other guy's doing some trash talking and this and that, whatever. It's everybody has their own style. But where every once in a while you would say, you might, as the trainer, you might tell the guy, or the guy might say himself, I'm going to do my talking in the ring. Well, that's Usman. Yep. That really is him. It really is. I mean, he doesn't say anything, but his body language tells you everything, that he's serious, he's ready to go, and he's basically, without verbalizing it, he's saying to you, I'm going to do my talking as soon as this bell rings. In about 3 seconds, when there's bell, I'm going to chatter, and I'm going to chatter a lot, and you're going to hear it loud, and you're going to hear it clear, and you're going to hear everything you need to hear. And it was funny because Masvidal, who of course is a friend of ours and we love and we respect, and he's great for the sport. He's done great stuff in the sport. You got to give him a lot of credit for his journey. They've all had great journeys, these guys. It's really remarkable. Every one of them could have a movie made about them if you think about it. But, just where the referee was given the final instructions in the center of the ring, you see Masvidal, not disrespectfully, that's his thing. His thing is to chatter, to talk, So you see him talking to Usman, and you look at Usman, not saying a word. Not saying a word. Body language telling it all, like, okay, I'll be back to give my rebuttal in a minute. And my rebuttal will be with these. With my fists, not with any verbiage, and you can see it. He goes back to his corner. He's leaning up against the fence, and he's bent down in that attack style mode that he likes to do, where he's bent down like a sprinter, ready to come forward, and you can see it. Like, here comes my talking. Here comes my talking.
Yeah.
So yep. I just felt I had to mention that because it was so evident. And that's it. Take it from there. Thank you.
One other thing I will mention about Usman, extra motivation for him in the fight, as if he needed more. But first of all, that was his 4th title defense, 14th straight win. But that was the first time his dad seen him fight in person. His dad just got out of jail, was in jail for I want to say about 10 years. Maybe more, on an insurance fraud case that I heard Usman speak about on Rogan's podcast, and he basically said his dad was wrongfully convicted. Nevertheless, he'd been away for a long time, so it was nice to see his dad in the ring with them, and a very proud family, hardworking guy. So congratulations again to Kamaru Usman and Trevor Whitman and the whole crew. Awesome performance. I'm sure we'll see George back again. Well done, George. Classy as always. Brings us to boxing. And before we get into the boxing, if you want to look like a boxer and you want to look like a real fan, check out Box Raw and Teddy's new 36-minute collection. Teddy, let's see that hoodie. You got what's the back look like?
Well,
oh, beautiful.
It's got that number.
36, which represents 36 minutes in a prize fight, 36 minutes to make life fair. Check it out at boxraw.com. Should be available starting in June. Beautiful preview. Looking forward to getting some of that gear myself.
You really want that. I was just about to say, you're really working to get that gear, aren't you? You're really working. You're working hard. You're working hard. You're going to get
for
it.
my supper.
You're working hard to get that gear. It reminds me of that Jerry Maguire movie with Cuba's Jr.
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah, I love him, and even if I say his name wrong, I still love him. And Cruz, where they're in that scene where where Cruz has lost a lot of his clients, and he's trying to hold on to him, and he's trying to accommodate him in any way that he can, and he's saying all this thing, what was he saying? It was really funny.
Help me help you.
Yeah, help me help you. Help me help you. And all of a sudden, Cuba Gooding Jr. Yeah. I call him Cuba Jr. All of a sudden, all of a sudden he just can't help it. He cracks up. He goes, Jerry, you're hanging by a string. But you're working hard. You're working hard. You're really trying, Jerry. You're hanging by a string. I just love that about you. And he starts throwing punches. I just love that you're still hanging in there, Jerry. You're working so hard to make this work. And listen, Ken, I appreciate that. Appreciate you working hard, and you're gonna get it. Don't worry. You're gonna you're gonna get that hoodie, and I'll see if I got some real small ones for your kids too.
Oh, they'll love it. The kids love that stuff. Hey, on a serious note, though, Ryan Garcia, friend of the show, former guest. His fight with Javier Fortuna on July 9th, Ryan announced that he is pulling out of the fight, apparently dealing with some mental health issues. I know he's been very open about speaking about his anxiety and some other issues around mental health. And it's hard not to feel for the kid because he's a young guy. And to be that young, that successful, and that famous, I don't think it's without its own challenges. It's always easy to look from the outside and say how great someone has it. They're making money. But it's a lot of responsibility for a kid that young and that famous making that kind of scratch. And I feel a little heartbroken for the kid, and I hope he gets the help he needs. I know he's got a good team around him, and they're reaching out to the right people. So keep your head up, Ryan Garcia. We're rooting for you. You're a good kid. You're a good person, and I hope you get better, and I know you will. And Teddy, I know you had some thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, no, I basically echo what you said. I had said to you before this, I wanted to touch on it. A lot of times we could just kind of ignore and go past such a thing that's difficult to talk about. But I didn't want to ignore it. I wanted to just real quickly touch on it and say, again, echo what you said, that our thoughts are with you, Ryan. He's a good kid. He comes from good stock. His father's also involved. His whole family is involved with the nutritional part of his camp and the training part of his camp and everything. So we're sure he'll get through it. He's got, as you said, Ken, he's got good people around him. There's a lot of pressure in life, period, in whatever you do. And same thing with being a young fighter. And we forget how, he's only 23 years old. And he's got a lot that is there now, and we don't know. We don't pretend to know all of the factors behind this. But what we do know is that mental health is a serious, serious issue. And I know that there's some people out there that sometimes right away they say things. Maybe they should reserve their thoughts. But I understand some people just jump and say things where they look suspiciously at him pulling out of a fight and start saying things, which they have said some of those things, talking about, here's a guy who was doing all the talk about wanting Tank Davis and all that stuff, and now they're looking at it suspiciously, saying, oh, maybe he doesn't want to fight, he wants to get out of the fight. I just think that's sad. And unfortunate and wrong for any of us to just think such things or to throw such things in the air. It's irresponsible because we don't know, but we do know that mental health is, once that word is mentioned, it's a serious issue. It's a very serious issue. It's an issue that causes some people to take their own lives. So I just felt we needed to just say a little something about it. And for the people out there, I'm not controlling your life. I'm not telling you how to behave as a person. The fans out there, you have a right to think and say what you want to say. It's a free world and a free country to do that. But I think we should just be reserved with our thoughts and our words a little bit in such a situation that we don't have all the information, and that there's the mention of such a thing that can be as delicate and as difficult and as dangerous as mental health. We we from our side, from our team with Rob and Ken, myself, my family, their families, and I'm sure representing a lot of you fans. I'm gonna go out there and represent a lot of you guys too, and say that we all hope you're good, and we all hope you get through this in a proper way, as the fighter that you are, and with the good people around you, that you will get through this, and we pray for that, and we pray. Ryan, to just get well, be well. And I wanna mention something where maybe it'll have put a little bit of a context in a physical way to a little bit of the mental health situation in boxing. In anything in life, but in this case, even with a fighter, how it can impact a fighter, because a lot of people take for granted that if someone's a fighter, they shouldn't be touched by such things as those kind of emotions in their mind, those kind of frailties, those kind of, in their mind, maybe weaknesses. It's not weakness, it's human. It's part of being a human being. It's in all of us. And fighters are subject to it like anybody else, vulnerable to it like anybody else. And where a lot of people think, well, if you're a fighter, you could do the things that most people can't do. Get in a ring, face that kind of pressure and that kind of threat, and go in there and chuck punches. Guess what? You're not sensitive. Or guess what? You're not possibility or candidate for being vulnerable to such things as pressure, as depression, as those kind of things, as being scared or whatever comes into that mental realm, that emotional realm that can come over the wall like a fog and just take over and smother you, as it does people every day in life. And you think that, a fighter would obviously be able to combat that. They would not be vulnerable to that. Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. Everybody can be vulnerable to it as a human being that was born on this planet in the way that we're all born. And that bleeds red like we all bleed red. And as I said, to put a physical context and example into it, years ago, and I asked Rob, our producer, the man who helps us put this all together, our friend and partner with all this, I asked him behind the scenes to look for this and to get it up there, where normally I wouldn't, because it's not something you want to see, but maybe it's something you need to see. A little reminder that years ago, Lennox Lewis was fighting Oliver McCall. Now, Oliver McCall had just, the previous fight had knocked out, big upset. Oliver McCall, good puncher, and he used to be a sparring partner of Mike Tyson. He won the world title, upsetting Lennox Lewis, who was the best heavyweight in the world at the time. He knocks out Lennox Lewis. I think it was the second round. It was fairly early. Knocks him out and becomes heavyweight champ of the world. And as I said, huge upset. And then in the rematch, he shouldn't have been in the ring, if we're going to speak candidly and frankly and honestly like we do on this podcast. Well, Oliver McCall shouldn't have been in the ring. But the money and the people around him and everything else, he got in the ring. Because of what was going on in his life at that time, emotionally, mentally, what he was going through, he shouldn't have been in the ring. And we never know what someone's going through. You know that old saying, you don't know how somebody's living in their home, in their house, behind the doors. You don't know. And sure enough, McCall gets in the ring, a lot of stuff going on in his life. And what happens? In the middle of the fight, something that's just probably never ever happened in the history of the sport before. In the middle of the fight, he starts crying. Literally starts crying. I mean, he literally put his arms and his head over the ropes, and he was crying. It was very difficult. If you're a human being, it was very difficult to see, to know a man was in that kind of distress, in that kind of harm's way, not by the punches, but what was going on in his mind, in his heart, what was obviously just tearing him apart. There was a fight going on inside that we weren't aware of. There was damage going on inside that we weren't aware of. And then suddenly, the whole world was made aware that something was happening, that something was wrong, when he started doing something that you would never in your life dream that a fighter could do during a match. He just started hysterically crying. And I just wanted to bring that up I thought it was important to bring that back, something I normally would never bring back, something that, was disturbing, something that was upsetting, something that was unfortunate for a person at that point in their life. But to the credit of McCall, he wound up going forward in his life. But something that we would normally ignore. And I thought because of this situation, we shouldn't ignore it. We should remind the people with a physical image, with a physical piece of proof that mental illness is no joke, that it can affect even fighters. And we should never take for granted that we know how somebody is living, feeling, or thinking at any time in their life. So I just wanted to say that and make sure that we presented that.
Yeah, good luck to Ryan. I'm sure he's going to get through this, and if there's anything we can do, obviously, we're happy to do it. Let's talk about this coming weekend. Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola. Again, one of the nicest guys in the world, Chris Arreola. Probably a little bit too much for Chris at this point, I think, with Andy Ruiz, especially with Andy Ruiz aligning with Eddie Reynoso and the Canelo camp. I'm expecting to see the best Ruiz we've ever seen, to be honest. He looks fit. It's just a pay-per-view fight. Curious to hear your thoughts on this one. We've touched on it before, but it looks like it's definitely happening this Saturday night on pay-per-view. Ruiz, Arreola. What do you think?
I don't know what kind of numbers they can get, because that's not trying to knock anyone. We're not ever trying to do that. We're just trying to put out the truth for the audience. That is not what you would think of when you're asking somebody to go into their pocket and take their hard-earned money and put it out there. That's not what you would think would headline a pay-per-view match. Arreola is 40 years old. He's been a warrior. But that's the problem. He's been a warrior for too long. He's taken a lot of punches, and his best days are well past him. And I'm actually concerned for his health. I'm not trying to stop him from making money or any of that. Never. I would never. I want him to make money and take care of his family. But at this point in his career, he's a kid that I like a lot. I like his personality. I like the kind of person he is, where he's come from, what his journey has been. A lot of these fighters have great journeys, great stories. He has a great story, a great journey. He's a terrific kid. He's a father. He's a husband. He's always conducted himself and handled himself in the ring and outside the ring the way that you would want somebody to, as I say, like a champion, in this case, like a man, like a real fighter. He's always gives everything. I don't know how much he's got left to give at this point in his career. That's what I'm concerned about. I just don't know how much he's got to give. And Ruiz is a good fighter. I think he's an underrated fighter. He knows how to fight. He showed that when he knocked out Joshua, on short notice. He didn't do it just because he could punch. He did it because he had quick hands, because he knew how to make a guy miss and counter. He knew when to throw, when not to throw. He knew how to get into the proper range to deliver. He knew how to finish the job. He knows how to fight. That's what I'm describing. That's what I'm saying. He knows how to fight. And he's finally in better condition, taking the sport more serious now. Credit to himself and Reynoso, the people around him, that he understands now it's time. He went in there, he blew up to over 280 pounds in a rematch. He got paid, against Joshua, but he also paid. He got paid, but he paid. He paid by being embarrassed. He paid for his reputation. He paid with people on the internet that could take shots at you. Where all of a sudden you're not the champ. Where all of a sudden you're vulnerable. Where all of a sudden you're cannon fodder. Where all of a sudden you're fair game. With people that can hide behind the screen of a computer. I don't even know how you do the damn thing. I wouldn't even know how to turn a computer on. But yeah, where you can hide back there and you can take shots at somebody you would never take shots at when you're in front of them. Yeah, he took a lot of those shots. And now he's doing something about it. He's getting in shape, which I knew he would. I figured he would. And he's in shape. And listen, his people are doing what you would know that they would do. They're trying to give him a guy that he will look brilliant against. Yeah, that be as least risk as possible, but at the same time, also a big reward. A big reward where you look sensational and you'll be able to say, here's a guy that's a warrior. Here's a guy that's a tough guy. Here's a guy that, didn't get knocked out by that undefeated Polish fighter in Brooklyn a couple years ago when they fought. This is a whole different situation. A whole different situation here. Ruiz is a better fighter than that undefeated Polish fighter was at the time when Arreola went to distance. He lost. Arreola lost. But yeah, he went to distance. But then again, he once again took a lot of punches in that fight. Left part of himself in the ring, as I often say. Again, he left part of himself in the ring. There's a little bit less of him now for this fight. I just think, again, his people are doing what they think is the right thing to do to get the biggest bang, out of this promotion, out of this comeback, to come back looking svelte and lean and mean and then knocking somebody out. They want to be able to put their best foot forward to get into that sweepstakes. The sweepstakes everyone wants to be in boxing. The heavyweight sweepstakes, the heavyweight world title sweepstakes. They want to put their foot forward and say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm a nominee. Hey, I'm a candidate. Hey, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how you get yourself into that game. This is how you get yourself into that lottery. That's how you do it. Yeah, this is how you do it." And again, I love Chris Arreola. I think he's terrific. I don't want to see him get hurt. It comes a time when we all have to stop doing what we do. It comes that time. And in boxing, the difference in boxing, I once made this analogy, Ken, I love Willie Mays. And when he came to the Mets, I was a young kid, but when he came to the Mets, I was like, oh my God, Willie Mays is playing for the New York Mets. I feel kind of bad for him, but the Mets weren't too good. But he's playing at that time, but he's playing for the Mets. Oh, this is great. I'm going to get to see him. And with that famous bucket catch where he would just drop his hands, boom, and make the bucket catch. Oh, he was so great, Willie Mays. And I'm going to see him. And then I went to a game to see him, and he couldn't even make the bucket catch. He couldn't, and he struck out. And that wasn't Willie Mays. That was a shadow of, that was somebody's, making just a cheap sketch of Willie Mays. That wasn't Willie Mays. And, it was sad. But here's the difference. At that age, when Willie didn't have it no more and he was playing baseball, the worst thing was that he would embarrass himself from what he was, from the greatness of what he used to bring to that field all the time, that maybe it could take a tiny bit away from his legacy. And be an embarrassing moment, but not a dangerous moment to his health. That's the difference in boxing when a guy goes too long. It's not about being just embarrassed and taken away from your legacy. It's about what happened to Muhammad Ali. It's about getting to that dangerous place where now something can happen to your health. Now something can happen to your well-being. Now it could be physically dangerous. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm concerned about. And I can only say from my podium here, as I used in ESPN for, almost 25 years, where I would use my podium to say things that I thought had to be said. If they could do something, good. I prayed that they did something, but I could only say them, hoping they would do something, hoping they would mean something. And I do the same thing from this podium, from this position, that I just say those things hoping that, I used to say things on the air on ESPN saying, listen, commission out there, wherever you are, don't license this guy. I know that, again, I don't, or think twice about licensing him. Make sure you give him all the tests. Just make sure. That's all. That's all. Because his health is possibly at risk here. It's always at risk when you do something like boxing for a living or UFC or football. Always. But more so when you get older. More so when you've been compromised in some of those areas physically. More so. So I remember saying on ESPN, hey, listen, the commission out there, don't just jump and, give a I don't want to take his ability to get a paycheck. I understand. I don't want to be doing that, but I don't want to see him get hurt either. And so I would do that on ESPN for that reason. And I would only do it when I obviously thought there was a real serious reason to do it. And I just feel that way right now. And I wish him all the luck in the world, Chris, with him and his beautiful family. And, he's been a warrior every time he's gotten into that squared circle, into that chamber of truth. He's always brought the truth that Chris Arreola is a warrior, that Chris Arreola is proud, that Chris Arreola is a fighter, that Chris Arreola will leave everything of himself in that ring. And that's what I'm afraid of now, that he'll leave everything of himself in the ring.
Well, he's definitely going to leave it all in the ring. Chris Arreola doesn't pussyfoot around. He comes in for the kill, and love him as a fighter. He's an awesome person. And before we wrap things up, just want to again say thanks to all the fans. Appreciate all the support, all the kind words. I get a ton of messages. I just got a message the other day from a young guy named Jack Kimball, who ironically or coincidentally my wife tutored for a long time as he was a kid. And he sent my wife an email and said, I just put 2 and 2 together after watching the show for 2 years that Ken is your husband, and I've been watching every episode. So thanks to Jack, and there's a million of them. I could go on forever. But Teddy, before I go, I just want to remind fans, if they'd like to receive a personalized message from you, a video message, they can hit you up on Cameo. Go to cameo.com, search Teddy Atlas. Teddy will send you a personalized message. There's been some real heartwarming ones too, with some people that have been suffering with some different ailments. So love seeing those all the time. And also, if you haven't heard Teddy's audiobook, you should check it out at audible.com. Fantastic read. Covers his whole history. I love it. I listened to it multiple times while I've been running. So anyway, Teddy, thanks for doing this. It's great talking to you as always. Appreciate all the insight. Looking forward to it again next week. We'll break down the Ruiz and Arreola fight. There's a UFC fight night coming up. There's actually on the undercard of that Ruiz fight, that kid Sebastian Fundora, who I'm a huge fan of. I think he's like 6'5", 150 pounds maybe. He's fighting a kid named Jorge Cota, step up in competition for Fundora. So I'll be looking forward to discussing that one with you on the undercard of Ruiz Arreola. Anyway, thanks everyone for being with us. Appreciate all the support. As always, leave some comments, share the links. Appreciate everything you guys do. Subscribe to the podcast. Thanks for being with us.